Hello, everybody. Once again, here we'll start episode 13 of the show, Quiet Nation. And there they are. What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I mean, the weather wasn't so great today. It's really windy over here. I don't know why. Just decided to be really windy. So that's what I'm dealing with today. Major problems over here. But yeah.
Uh,
How are you?
I mean, it's windy and it's raining here.
Oh,
So if we're
at
gonna
least
play
the wind
victim
hurt.
cards, I have got so many more victim cards than you
You do.
have. So, uh, anyways, it is one of those Mondays I think where all three of us are just like, can we just postpone the podcast to Tuesday and
Yeah.
call it good? So,
Yeah, it's good. The weather and just how tired we are from this weekend. I mean, it's just one of those days. You're right. It's one of those days.
yeah, just one of those days. So. This is Show Choir Nation, the premier podcast of the Homeroom Show Choir Network. And it is getting towards the end of March, but we are still rocking and rolling pretty solid here. We have plenty of content going up on homeroomshowchoir.com, although it has transitioned a little bit more towards the end of season variety of content. We still have rankings going up. We still have comps of the week pieces going up. We still have some fun columns in the future, hopefully hitting you in the next week or so. And also just a reminder that if you can't stay for the whole hour on Instagram, the show will be available on YouTube and on Spotify afterwards. So if you can't get enough of our dulcet tones right now, just to go back and watch or listen to the show there. All right, folks, we are going to start out in California for this show. The Cypress Star Reflections competition happened this past Saturday, and unfortunately, information has been a little bit sparse coming out of this one. We unfortunately do not have the results of the main advanced mixed division that featured John F. Kennedy Executive Order, Heart, Sound, Vibrations, and Brea Olinda Masquerade. We don't have information for the novice mixed division as well. But what we do have are women's division results in advanced women's. John F. Kennedy First Ladies taking home the, I guess, only trophy in that division. In intermediate women's, Heartbreakers took first place, and Brea Olinda Spellbound took second place. And then in novice women's, Walnut Rhapsody and Blue took home first place, and the Brea Olinda Tiffany's were in second. I don't know if any of the three of us are super familiar with any of these programs off the bat. I'll just toss it quick. Is there anything anybody can say about this or not really?
No, I don't know much. It's kind of crazy that we're in 2023 though, and we can't get results right away. And it's kind of crazy on that regard. But I mean,
I'm,
overall,
hold on. I,
what?
I gotta I gotta stop you there. You just
Oh, it's
said
not 24. It's not 24. You caught me. I caught myself. Thank you for stopping me. So everything I've been doing so far, I wrote 2023. Like everything I've been writing, I'm like, oh, this has happened since 2023. Oh wait, it's 2024. And it's crazy that the 2024 season's wrapping up because we're already on our way to 2025, and my brain can't handle it. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know much, but 2024, and we still can't get results right away. Which I mean, that's no biggie. I mean, it is what it is, but it's just kind of crazy how like times with this technology and how fast things move now. I mean, showchoir.com has been a thing for how long now? I don't know the dates on it or how long it's been, but it's been around for a while now. Um, but yeah, just going off the results that we have, shout out John F. Kennedy for winning their division. They're always a strong group. Brea Linda getting second in both divisions. I mean, that's probably not what they wanted, but is it Walnut? Is it just Walnut?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, Walnut's been a really good group for a while. I've always seen them in top placements. And of course, the Heartbreakers are always an amazing group. Adam, if you have anything on this competition, go ahead.
Not much, but I do think it's interesting. We had a talk last week about seasons starting and ending, and I think it's interesting that we are still 26 days out
from the last major California competition. And so that's Oceanside in mid to late April. So I think it's very interesting that on the West Coast, the show choir circuits play out far longer than the Midwest or the East Coast or the South, respectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Ethan, I think just touching on your main point, it is weird how I think there's like in the Midwest, there's very much this kind of like this obligation of like if I'm a choir, I need to like inform my supporters of how we did and things like that. And in California, I think it's much more of a lower key thing. There's not this like standard of posting out on social media immediately after like, hey, this is how we did whatever. And I think it has its pros and its cons too. I mean, while we love talking about all things show choir, and I think we're all sad that we don't have results to discuss in this competition. I think it does go to show some of the regional differences that we have. And Adam, talking about your point as well, I mean, California is still going. I think May 18th is the SCBA Spectacular. So we will probably not be having weekly shows by that point because school is basically out for some people by that point in time. But anyways, we're going to move not into the Midwest, but we're going to move to Texas. And this is the Rouse Capital City Showcase. The final results of this one, Keller Blue Lights taking him the win in best choreography, and Ethan taking him a win against his Mosquito there. In first,
Yeah, you saw that?
I did see that. I did see that.
It was the most random thing ever.
The first runner-up, Fort Worth Southwest Effect with best vocals. Second runner-up, Timber Creek Aerodynamics. Third runner-up, Hebron Harmony. Fourth runner-up, Keller Lumina, that's Keller's girls group. And fifth runner-up, Fort Worth Southwest Sound Machine, which is Fort Worth Southwest's prep. The prelim placements for this one had Fort Worth Southwest on top, followed by Keller, and then Hebron in third, Timber Creek in fourth, and then Keller's girls in fifth, and Fort Worth Southwest's prep in sixth. So just an interesting shakeup there. Ethan, have you heard of any of these groups? And if so, what surprises you and what doesn't?
So it's funny that you said if I've ever heard of one of these groups, because one of them I've never heard of ever. So, and I had to do a little bit of research on them. It's Hebron. I've never heard of Hebron before this competition. I at least heard at all these groups at some point here or there. And I did a little research, and they formed in 2017. They've only competed like 3 times ever, according to showchoir.com. And the first ever placement was at this competition last year. And then they went up themselves because they got 5th place last year. So they got 4th. They upped the ante a little bit. So they went up 1. So really cool to hear about new choirs every now and then, even though this choir's been here since 2017. You just don't see them on the results page as much. But congrats to them on a high placement. Yeah, and something else that's kind of interesting to me, I don't know about you, but in Texas, there's always caption splits, I feel like. I feel like at every competition this season, there's been a caption split besides when Broken Arrow went down there. So it's kind of cool to see how close these groups are in Texas and how competitive it actually is. Because it's always one group snagging the vocal and one group snagging the choreography. And here it just happened to be Keller with the choreography and Fort Worth with the best vocals. They both had fantastic years. Keller only lost to Broken Arrow and LD Bell System, and they also beat LD Bell System earlier in the season as well. So amazing seasons by all these groups, and Texas show choir is on the rise that we talked about early in the season.
Adam, what do you have?
Well, I think it's interesting. Fort Worth Southwest is a group that actually had a bit of a rockier start this season. They came in with 2 5th place placements at their first 2 competitions. One of them was one where Keller, I believe, took home second. It was the one with Broken Arrow, with the Broken Arrow sweep there. But I do think it's interesting to see them come back late season and snag that vocal caption from Keller.
Yeah, there we go. Ethan, to follow up on your point, Hebron, the director of Hebron is Alex Carr, and he was formerly the assistant director of Keller Blue Lights. So Hebron, it is interesting. They're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but for whatever reason, their only competition each year is Rouse, which is a good few hours down the road in Austin. And then to Adam, to your point with Fort Worth Southwest, well, it's just such a tongue twister. Let me tell you that much. They are a very, very interesting group because, like you said, they had a couple of 5th place finishes going into the year. So they started off the season hosting their invitational. They wound up skipping out on like North Texas to travel up to the Omaha South Classic in Nebraska. They were fifth there, and then they were fifth at Keller Central as well. They were second place here in a split caption, and then they actually have tread left on their tire. They will be going up to Jenks, Oklahoma on April 13th to compete at the Jenks Show Choir Invitational. So they're the only group in Texas that has another competition left on the docket. I think one of the prep groups might or something like that, but they're the only big Texas program with something left. I just want to give a huge shout to Keller Blue Lights because they're the first ever non-Keller Central group to nab 2 wins in Texas in the same season. And so Texas really has only had 4 competitions now for a couple of years. And so it's been very hard for anybody, including Keller Central, to string together years with multiple wins in the state. So Keller being able to break through and being that first non-Voices of Central group to do that, I think is fantastic. The other interesting thing here is that we had 2 prep groups make finals. There were a solid, I believe, 10 high school choirs there, maybe 11 or 12. So there were a solid number of groups who just simply missed out on finals. So it's a testament to how good these prep groups are as well. And just a note to close out on this Texas thing here. Texas is seeing 2 more competitions next year. So that means that we'll have 6 competitions in Texas. There'll pretty much be one every weekend from the beginning of February up until this point in March, maybe a weekend off here or there. So that is super huge for that scene as well. Burleson, Centennial, and South Lake Carroll are both going to be hosting next year. So that is a huge step forward for that scene. We're going to move to the Northeast now with the Bishop Hendricken Lil Rhodey Rumble, which, to my account, is the second ever boxing-themed show choir competition. The first one being the Naperville North Sequence. If I had a nickel for every time that I heard about a boxing-themed show choir competition, I would only have 2 nickels. And it's not that much, but it's weird that it happened twice. So shout out to the Lil Rhodey Rumble and to the Clash of the Sequins there. In the large mixed division here, first place South, Windsor Choral Spectrum, best vocals, best choreo. Second place, Waltham Music Unlimited, best band. Third place, Shepherd Fantasy. In the small mixed division, first place, Western New York Music Academy Shout with best choreo. Second place, Leominster Ignition with best vocals. Third place, Dartmouth Dynamics. And in the women's division, in first place, Shepherd Hill Illusion with best vocals and best choreo. Second place, Andover Nothing But Treble. And in third place, Waltham Music Express with the band award. Ethan, hopefully you're a little bit more familiar with the Northeast. What's your read on this?
So my read is, first off, boxing contests are amazing, and you should at least always go to one at some point because they're just always the ball. There's somehow they're just, it's just more energy. I don't know what it is. I don't know. And I think maybe I don't know if Blue Valley does a boxing competition, but I know they give out a belt, which I mean that could be completely different. But
third one, then.
Yeah, that would be 3, which I just know they give out a belt. But on this contest itself, my thing is, South Windsor has been all over the board this season, especially against Waltham. So coming into this contest, it was kind of unknown where they were gonna place. Because last weekend, what was it? They placed it below Waltham, or no, they bested Waltham last weekend, and then earlier in the season, oh no, wait, or I have that backwards. Wait, hold up. I think I have that backwards. In early February, they beat Waltham with a second place finish, and then at Andover past week, they were 3 spots below Waltham. And Andover was packed, but 3 spots below to beating them is kind of crazy. Before this I said, whoa, that was kind of like a big upset, but it's not really, because I mean that's just what South Windsor does. They're an amazing choir. Connecticut wins twice this weekend, which we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, and the other thing I get from this competition is New York. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Will, because you know more about this, but the state of New York, they're currently 2 for 2 in their respective divisions. They're undefeated.
Yeah. You had Uniondale winning Fame, Orlando. You have the Music Academy of Western New York take their small mixed division here. So yeah. I guess New York remains undefeated so far.
Yeah, and I think there's one comp left, and they go to the Show Choir National, or not Nationals, but the Canada Championships. So
that is correct.
I think that's where they end up season. Waltham has had an amazing season too. I have to give them some props. They have 1 win and 4 second place finishes in a region where it does seem dominated by only a few groups, but they've were 10 toes in on it, and they had a fantastic season. And they'll be hosting competition. I haven't really looked at that competition yet since it's 2 weeks out, but I know it will be a good one.
There we go. Adam, what do you got to say?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out a friend of the show, Mr. Michael James Breen, was actually the best performer judge here. And per his information, I am aware that the top 2 spots were extremely close. So these are 2 groups that have been actually back and forth throughout the season. Earlier in the season, South Windsor took a spot above them, and then later they dropped below at another competition. But other things I want to point out from those top 2 spots where the spotlight's pretty focused. I do want to point out Tantasqua's Best Show Design Award. Tantasqua is a group that intended to deconstruct some of the things that we think about show choir this year. So their show is pretty thought-provoking, but also very funny and very lighthearted. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is this is Andover's first gold medal of the season. So this is something that happens in the Northeast. We don't see gold, silver, and bronze medals in other places, but depending on and someone's gonna have to remind me what the cutoff is on the scoring index. I believe it's very, very close to. It's about 11 or 12 points off from a perfect score where they cut it off.
I think it's about 87% of the total points is the gold medal cut.
There we go. Yeah. And so it's great to see this many groups go into finals. I know a weekend or 2 ago, we had a finals with entirely gold medal groups, which is really cool to see. But I think that the Northeast Circuit has been making some noise. It's really, really cool to see how competitive South Windsor, Waltham, and Daniel Hand, who we'll get to in a moment here, are respectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one final thing that I want to touch on, round this out. A couple of groups that we look at placing wise that have also grown throughout the season. Shepherd Hill is a group that has had kind of a later season, even for the Northeast. This is their first podium of the year. They have a very impactful show about a community member that recently passed away. So it's good to see Shepherd Hill get their flowers late. And then we talked about them briefly, but the Music Academy of Western New York Shout. This is their first ever division win. They've actually been around since before the pandemic. And they've been a little bit spotty in which competitions they go to. Sometimes they wind up going to Ohio, since that's kind of an equitable drive than the Northeast. And I think the Canada one is actually their shortest drive, which is weird. But it is what it is. So this is their first ever division when they were third in small mix last. So a really good sign for them as well. We're going to move to Virginia now with the Powhatan Diamond Classic in the large mix division here. In first place, Cosby Spotlight with vocals, choreo, and band. In second place, Clover Hill New Dimensions. And in third place, Kaleidoscope. In middle mix, first place, Martinsburg Good Times with vocals, choreo, and band. Second place, Herbert Hoover High Impact. In third place, Thomas Dale 19. And in small mixed, Hanover County Sound Effects with vocals and band in the win. Second place, Amherst County Amarachos. And in third place, Powhatan Harbor Lights with the best choreo. Winners of the women's divisions, large mixed, Cosby Rhapsody. They took home the overall win. Middle women's, Douglas S. Freeman Harmony and Motion. And small women's, Powhatan Touch of Jade. So we've talked about Cosby a little bit on this show before. I think it's a good place to jump off there. Cosby finishes their season undefeated this year for 4-for-4. The last time they lost was at the Homestead Classic Showcase in 2023, which is all the way in Indiana. So a big run of the Eastern Seaboard for Cosby. We also have a couple groups in Clover Hill and Musselman that are shown out in large mix. Ethan, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I'm just going to go right off what you said about their 4-win season. So they're on a 7-comp win streak right now, and they've gone up against really good choirs from their region. They've gone up against Manchester, Waltham, Daniel Hand, Auburn, which is kind of weird that you throw Auburn in there, but yes, Auburn, South Windsor, Shepherd Hill, and Clover Hill. So they've been on a dominant run lately. So big shout out to everyone in that program, because I mean, before this, I really didn't know who Cosby was besides seeing them in placement boards. Now I know them as a dominant force in Virginia. Yeah, and then Clover Hill, they had a nice placement to end out their season. Before this, they got a 4th place finish, I believe, at Fairfield. Yeah, it was Fairfield, which was a stacked competition, but clearly not where they wanted to be on that placement board. Martinsburg with a pretty cool sweep because they bested Herbert Hoover, who had their number earlier in the season. So big time to Martinsburg. And then Douglas S. Freeman women's group stays elite. I mean, all I see is W's next to the name besides when John Burroughs came up there. And I got to shout out Cosby Raspedy as well. They're always a fantastic group.
All right. Adam, your thoughts?
Well, you mentioned Clover Hill. This is a program that dominated the circuit pre-COVID. And of course, COVID has had all sorts of effects on programs, and I won't spend time talking about that because who wants to talk about 2020 and 2021 and all the madness then, right? But I think it is interesting to talk about Cosby emerging better than ever. And I would be very interested to see them maybe go for a double-digit streak in 2025. So we'll see. We're starting to see who's attending, what competitions coming up and around. We're also going to see. We won't know what the dynamic of these groups are until a couple months out. But it's very, very interesting to see that circuit become even more complex.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't planning on titling this episode way too early 2025 predictions, but
We're already on.
regardless, yeah, Clover Hill is a group that I want to shout out. They have experienced some director turnover in the past few years, and it's hard to replicate what outstanding directors have done. They had a really good run in between Thomas and Rachel Snyder, and so now Nicole Whitby is there, and she is doing phenomenal things with them too. They look to solidly be back in the Virginia kind of big three, along with them, Cosby, and Manchester, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. And then in middle mixed, Ethan, you touched on Martinsburg. That's a show that got a bronze medal up in New England at the start of the season. And so by the end of the season, they're out here winning the middle mixed division. So if we look at shows that grow throughout the season, I think Martinsburg is kind of the poster child for that this year. And then a special shout out to Hanover in the small mixed division. They finished undefeated in that division this year. Hanover is a program that as recently as like 8 to 10 years ago, we're battling for overall wins groups like Fairfield. And so it's tough for longtime Fire observers team in the small mixed division, but I really do hope that some of the success this season that they've had can help propel them up to middle mixed and then hopefully back up to large mixed and competing for wins again sometime in the future. We're headed to the Big Apple with Heart of America, New York City. This is the last HOA New York for the time being. They announced that they will not return to New York City in 2025. As of right now, it looks like Los Angeles will be the third Heart of America event for next year, with a potential fourth one to be added, although I've heard some conflicting things on that. So the final results here, Daniel Hand Vibe taking home the win, Best Vocals and Best Choreo. Olentangy Keynotes taking second place and Best Band. Edgewood Music Warehouse, third place. Edgewood Sophisticated Ladies, fourth place. And the Olentangy She Notes in fifth place. 5 high school groups here. All of them qualified for finals. Adam, I'll toss this one to you here first. What's the most intriguing storyline from the 5 groups?
For me, it's got to be Olentangy. And this is a group that we talked about last week, but I do think it's very interesting. They were given a caption for Most Improved Choir, and I believe that's because they nagged the second spot in finals as where they were close, as where they were in third in, yes, in prelims. So that was fascinating to see. You've got, I mean, pretty much every group that was sitting there in finals from prelims. All of these groups are excellent. And the last thing I will point out is Edgewood's treble group grabbing a spot above Olentangy's treble group, which is pretty reputable. I'll say She Notes are a great, super fun group. And so I think that's a big win for Edgewood, which competes as a small group in Indiana, actually.
Ethan, what do you think about this?
So yeah, first off, looking at it, it's kind of funny how you have Olentangy in second overall as our mixed group, and then it goes Edgewood, Olentangy. But that's how kind of how this competition went out. Yeah, I think Adam, you brought up some really good points about Olentangy. They've had a kind of an up and down year. They started off kind of hot, stealing a caption from Marysville, I believe, and then they got some placements that you kind of didn't expect after you snag a caption off an undefeated Marysville. But they end their season on a high note, which is super cool to see. You want every choir to end on a high note or something to hang their hat on for next season, especially for those seniors. But Daniel Hand, I mean, they finish off an amazing season, a bounce back win. I forgot what our do we just call it bounce back wins? A get back win? I don't know. We have so many terminologies on the show now that I'm trying to remember. but they get a get-back win to end their season on a high note. So congratulations to them after the 4th-place finish at Andover, which they kind of don't get good placements at Andover in the past couple of years. It's kind of been up and down at Andover. I mean, I'm not trying here to spark anything, but, that's not my place. Sorry if I did. But yeah, one thing, and another big shout out to all the treble groups here. It's super cool to, of course, were there finals here?
Yes.
The format finals is always super cool, especially for your last competition, especially for treble groups or any single gender groups. And I mean, after Will goes on and wants to talk about this, I do have a question for you guys for a little banter, if you guys are down for it.
Sure. We can go.
Not that exciting, but it's something I want to bring up.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit the pause button real quick here. I don't normally call people out, but I saw that a Daniel Robinson joined. I'm curious if this is the Daniel Robinson who won the solo caption at Powhatan.
Oh.
So, anyways, if so, congrats on that. But continue.
That'd be very interesting. As for what Ethan said about Andover, I think that's much more a product of Andover consistently being one of the most packed competitions in the Northeast than it is of any kind of judging vendettas or anything like that. I also want to give another shout out to Daniel Hand. I mean, they were 5th here in finals last year. They were the last group into finals, and then they turn it around in 2024, only a year later, and then they take home the win. So that was phenomenal. And something else that I want to point out is that we have a show choir sandwich going on. And what does that mean? That means that we had Olentangy group in 2nd and 5th, and we had Edgewood in 3rd and 4th. And so this is a double-decker show choir sandwich because sometimes you see 2 groups from the same school in like 3rd or 5th, and then a school in 4th. But here we have 2nd, and then we have 5th, and then we have 2 groups from the same school in 3rd and 4th. And so that is an exceedingly rare occurrence to see that. But it's just kind of how it took out. And congrats to the sophisticated ladies for pulling off a performance that put them in 3rd for Music Warehouse and 4th, because I think a lot of the girls in Sophisticated Ladies do. So yeah, that's my recap of HOA NYC. Ethan, are you gonna try and start another fight? The chat is trying to insinuate.
I did not try to start a fight. I was outside of the server. I'm just an outside observer. I'm just looking at past results. This is what I do. No, but we kind of had this conversation in our group chats, and I'm wondering if you were HOA with them moving to LA next season, where would you like to see an HOA as a show choir observer? Will, do you want to start?
This is a very interesting one because I think at a certain point you have to delineate like why you go to an HOA event. Do you go to an HOA event to go to a destination, or do you go to an HOA event to compete against a lot of choirs, or is it a mix of both? And so I think that, depending on what your group's motivation is for going to HOA, I think that definitely influences some of the metrics behind where they are. I think something that I would love to see HOA in is that I would love to see HOA because we have some Colorado groups starting to make a name for themselves. Vista Ridge just did their inaugural festival a couple weekends ago. Denver is only about 6 hours away from the Nebraska hotbed, a few hours more from the Iowa hotbed. It's a pretty accessible competition for groups from Missouri. Even still, it's somewhat accessible competition for groups from Texas. And if a group from the eastern side of the Midwest or the East Coast entirely wants to make of it as well, or if someone from California wants to only make half the drive they usually do to go to a national competition, I think I would welcome that as well. So HOA Denver or HOA Boulder, HOA Colorado Springs, HOA Grand Junction, maybe even HOA Cheyenne, Wyoming although I think that would be loud if that happened. But HOA somewhere in that general vicinity would be my pick for another HOA event.
Adam, do you have any?
Ooh, I mean, I suppose it would be cold this time of the year, but the only major Canadian competition that I'm aware of is Show Choir Canada, which happens in April. And I think it would be so funny if there was an HOA, a Heart of America competition in Canada. There's absolutely no logic or founding here. I just think it would be so funny if there was a Heart of America competition in not the continental United States. So It would never happen.
Yeah.
I just think it would be very
So
funny.
timestamp this if somehow it happened. Adam called it.
Well,
For me,
hey, it still would be the heart of North America. It may not be the
Part
heart
of
of
North America,
but it would still be the
Ontario.
yeah. And then for me, I'll just do really fast that I thought of. Minneapolis was a really cool city, and they have some fantastic choirs up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it'd be super cool to maybe try to force some Wisconsin groups, sorry, Will, to go up against some national competition. It'd be super cool to see because you get Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois. I already said Iowa, Wisconsin. You get a bunch of groups who'd go up there. And I think Minneapolis is such a cool city. And it's kind of different because there's not many competitions up there as well, besides the groups that host there. So, and then my other one is HOA had one there, 2017, which I was kind of happy. I got to go to somehow. I don't know how, but HOA Atlanta would be super cool because first off, it's Atlanta, big city in the South where you can go, where many groups would like to go. It's warmer down there. Yeah, and I think Georgia only has like one competition a year, which is I'm guessing
Tift County, baby.
Yeah, so it's super cool to see another competition in Georgia, and they pulled in some pretty good groups last time it was down there. So I guess that's kind of where I would put an HOA.
All right, yeah. We do have a chat recommendation. Dominic Mattis says HOA Salt Lake City, and so if my
That would be
memory
cool.
serves, I believe at some point American Leadership Academy was in the planning process of putting a competition together. I think it simply just fell apart due to a lack of choirs that were going to attend. But I truly do believe that at some point in time, I either read something or was told something about a potential ALA comp. I think it's been dead in the water for a long time now. I think that was back when Mr. Lunt was there. But I do believe I heard something about that. Adam,
I feel like I remember you messaging about this just the other day.
Yeah. Ethan, do you have anything to add there?
No. Well, first off, anywhere different would be super cool because it'd be tempting for me to go out there, someplace I've never been. And I mean, I don't know who would go to that. You'd have to think, well, regionally wise, it's like kind of a destination where it's like if people want to go to Salt Lake City, go to Salt Lake City. Like, why not? People do it. I also saw a comment, and it was like have HOA at SCA, which my brain just kind of like exploded a little bit because I was like, I don't know how you would even do that, have workshops and everything and hold a competition. But I was like, just the amount of people would be absurd. Or have a competition where it's just SCA students. I don't know.
That would be insane. So one thing that I do want to circle back on, Adam mentioned Heart of America Canada. In 2014, there was something called the Show Choir Canada Can-Am Invitational.
Ooh.
So this was on April 13th, 2014. So this was a long, like some of our viewers right now may have been just getting out of diapers when this happened. But so there was a Can-Am Invitational, and so there were 9 groups that attended. The only 2 American groups that went, so there were 7 Canadian groups. It was in Toronto. Waltham Music Unlimited was 3rd place. And then Rich South Inspired Legacy from Rich South was in 8th place. And Ethan, I'm going to ask you, why should you know about Rich South High School?
I should not. I don't know. Am I missing something? I feel like I'm missing something, and I don't want to be missing something. Am I?
I have finally found a choir that you do not have a story about. This is fantastic. Gotcha.
Get the fireworks. Get the fireworks.
Fireworks.
There we go. Okay, I guess the animations aren't working. But anyways, the reason you should know about Rich South is because they're from Illinois. But 2014 was the last year competing. They are, it looks like one school district over from Crete. So 2014 was the last time they competed. They competed at O'Fallon, which is a competition that no longer exists, El Paso Gridley, and Show Choir Canada. So...
Will, I found what we were talking about.
Okay.
I'm almost going my voice
this
here.
Isn't breaking news.
In March of 2020, March of 2020, there was an event scheduled to occur, which did not happen for unknown reasons.
Who knows?
But the Winter Park Ski Music Festival in 2020, which was scheduled to have Alex Hall, Stephanie Hyatt, and Lucas Warren judge. And I remember you mentioning that Jen Randall may have been involved. So
Yes. Yeah. Winter Park was kind of like a fever dream in the show choir world, because Jen Randall had just stepped away from directing Mitchell Friendecoux. For those of us who know how to say that group name, go back to episode 5 if you're not picking up on that joke. But so she was teaching journalism, I think, somewhere in Texas, and she, I believe, was organizing this Winter Park ski music festival, which was a thing beforehand, but I think that they really wanted to beef up their show choir portion. And so she hired some fantastic judges. And I can't recall off the top of my head a single group who was scheduled to go. I think it was just one of those things where either it was going to be either super low attended, or just like all of the groups that were going were it pretty hush hush. Ultimately, it's going to be one of those things where we never know, because by the time we got out of the pandemic, by the time we got out of the pandemic, Winter Park Ski Music Festival was back to just saying, oh, well, if you have choreography, we'll put you in with the jazz choirs. So.
Yeah, and I mean, while we're on the topic, I mean, I'll go really fast. Show choir select. No, was it show choir select?
Show choir select.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean,
Careful.
For those that don't know, it was supposed to be in St. Louis, and it was supposed to happen for like 3 years, but it was in the middle of the pandemic. Not in the middle, but it started like 2 years before the idea did. And it was supposed to be at the Fox Theater, and it was supposed to be a big thing. We had some big groups coming. I believe Marysville, Fairfield, Nevada, and maybe there's a slew of middle mixed Illinois choirs going as well. So, and I was supposed to host one year, so I was kind of bummed out by it. It just disappeared, you know. But I mean, hey, I mean, we could talk about that forever on an off-season episode.
Yeah. So we do have a tentative list from March 26th, 2020, of who's going to be going. This one from a mysterious forum board poster called swings.ep. So this list says that Street Monique, O'Fallon, Pearl River Central, North Rankin. I've never heard of North Rankin before. I've heard of Northwest Rankin, but not North.
Nevada, Ethan.
Marysville, Springfield, and Marquette from basically St. Louis was going to go. And so I believe some of the Decatur people and some of the Mount Zion people were behind this one. And so, yeah, just another one of those things where you're like, man, like, what if? And I generally make it a rule in my life that I can't go on what ifing myself forever. But this is one of those things where I really, truly do say, like, man, what if? Because really, like, in the St. Louis area, I would say that it's really Troy Buchanan, Marquette, and Highland are the only 3 groups that compete in the St. Louis area. And so having a St. Louis event really would have been kind of more of a destination event.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any other final sort of thoughts on the topic of where should HOA put their next event / which dead show choir regional competition should we expect?
Not off the top of my head. I'll keep a list up here for off-season for sure.
Okay. Adam, Ethan, can you that we still have 2 competitions left to cover this episode?
Yeah, my bad, guys. Didn't mean to get off track.
Okay, there's no predictions, so we're rocking it. We're rocking.
This is peak late season shenanigans going on. Folks, in case you're not aware, we have no competitions coming up this weekend because it's Easter. So we got no previews to talk about. So we're just we're rolling reviews and hypotheticals the entire episode tonight, I guess. So the West Virginia State Show Choir Festival was this past Saturday. This one occurred at Polka High School. In the championship division, Hendricken Red Hot took home the win, best vocals, best choreo, and best band. Winfield's General Admission, second place. Robert Seabird, Vocal Intensity, third place. Polka Visual Volume, fourth place. And Huntington Illusions, fifth place. The festival mixed winner was Capital Voices in Perfection with best vocals. And the single gender winner was Hurricane Heatwave with best choreo and best band. folks, it's another year of West Virginia State's, and it's another Hurricane win. 2014 was the last time we not win this competition. I mean, it's almost an expectation at this point that Mr. Kincaid just has that group rolling so well. Other than that, what other storylines do we have? I'll open the floor up to either one of you who may have a thought.
So it's still, my storyline's still Hurricane, but it's kind of different. It's their combo. 6 for 6 on the season where it was given out. I mean, they've been to 7 comps, but 1 comp didn't give out their best band. So I just want to give a shout out to combos. We don't give that much love to combos on this show out loud. I mean, we do, but not out loud. So shout out to Hurricanes combo going 6 for 6. That's amazing. Before this competition, I said Winfield was going to be a wild card at this competition, and they went wild. So they got a second place finish, which, I mean, I don't know what the community thought beforehand, but I know Robert C. Byrd is a really good choir, and they always get top placements in the region. So I know many probably thought Robert C. might get that second spot, but it kind of felt good to maybe be like, oh, man, I called something a little bit in this region besides Hurricane win. Do you know how bad I want to say Hurricane? So bad. I blame them. But Hurricane had an amazing season. Congrats to them. Polka had a nice finish as well. They've had a great season. Yeah, and that's what I have from the West Virginia States.
Good gosh, you're about to turn the entire city of Hurricane, West Virginia, on you right now. Like, are you also unaware of the fact that there's also Hurricane Utah, which pronounces it the same way? Like,
oh,
yes,
no clue.
There we go. You learned something today.
Also, everything I know about geography is from show choir, by the way. I'm like, if you name a place and then it's like, oh, this athlete's from this school, I'm like, oh, first edition. You know, it's kind of like that thing. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. All right. Adam, besides for how you pronounce certain things, what do you think about this competition?
Well, I'll tell you what. Both of the Winfield groups, I had the privilege of seeing them as they traveled to the Indianapolis circuit earlier this season. And while General Admission is a fantastic and super fun show, I do want to talk a little bit about Emerald Elegance. This is a group that I saw in that late February kind of range of the season. But they have a very, very fun show. It's a Golden Girls theme. And so it's good to see them. They grabbed the caption off of Hurricane's girls group, which is also no small feat, and especially in West Virginia. So congrats to them for that, and congrats to the entire group and the director for a great season.
All right. Yeah. A couple things that I want to point out here real quick. We had a very interesting caption split in Festival Mix. Capital won the division with Just Best Vocals, whereas in the women's division, Hurricane Heatwave won with choreo and band. So it was kind of interesting to have that kind of flip there, whereas Hurricane won the championship mix division with all 3 of those captions. And then Polka showing up well. They were in whatever the 3rd mix division down is. They didn't have that this year. So I don't know what the West Virginians call that. But they jumped straight up, like the 2nd festival division, all the way up to championship this year. And they placed 4th in the division, last. And so I think it was a pretty justified move. Definitely not the biggest group numbers wise. Obviously a group show wise, as we see in their placements there. Also, Emerald Elegance, I believe, is only a 2nd-year group. Maybe a 3rd-year group, but I don't think they were a thing before the pandemic. So, Adam, when you put all your praise on Emerald Elegance, and very deservedly so, this is a very young group compared to a lot of women's that have gone for a very, very long time. So now, folks, we get to the storyline that most of you probably expected us to talk about at the very beginning of this episode, and that is Show Choir Nationals. Nationals went on this past weekend. Hey, and it's the 45, and we're finally getting around to talk to it. So anyways, the results of this one in the mixed division: Center Grove Sound System, 1st place Best Vocals and Best Choreo. In 2nd place, Grenada Visions. 3rd place, Oak Mountain Singers. 4th place, Finley 1st Edition. 5th place, Noblesville NHS Singers. And in 6th place, Cedar Rapids Kennedy Happiness Incorporated. Center Grove does it again. Adam, you are the Indiana resident of the 3. What do you have to say about the season that Center Grove has had this year?
Well, Uh, friend of the show, Circle City Show Choir could talk about Noblesville for days, and we actually saw a lot of people talk about Center Grove here in the thread. So this is a group sound system that is always competing as one of the best in the country and in the state of Indiana. They are situated just on the south side in Greenwood, and I mean this has been, in my memory, this has been the strongest season this group has brought. And this, I mean, not at all to diss on any past seasons. This is an extremely reputable program. But this was truly a great season for Center Grove, undefeated against some of the best groups in the country here, from groups from the South, from groups from their home circuit, and from all over the country. So I think we would be remiss to not talk a little bit about Center Grove wrapping their season off with a title here at Show Choir Nationals.
Yeah, Ethan, anything else that hasn't been said about Center Grove?
I don't know. I feel like we can talk about them forever, and that there's so many things we haven't talked on. But if this feels like we talked about everything, kind of. I mean, after seeing them live, it was kind of like, well, I think they have every competition under the bag unless they slip up. And going to a national competition, there's still what ifs, but after day 2, it kind of seemed like they had it locked up with their first place finish. Fantastic season. We have to give them their flowers. You just have to. Fantastic season. Hacken said it was the show choir of the year. Which, I mean, it's hard to say no to. There's some fantastic choirs this year. Personally, this was one of my favorite Center Grove years. Being close to Indiana, I've been lucky enough to see so many Center Grove shows. So this might be one of my favorites. I don't know. It's hard to top the Super Bowl halftime show they did a few years back, because that show was just so much fun. Here, it was a better overall show, vocally and choreography wise. But I had so much fun that whatever year that was, 2020, I believe. But yeah, congratulations to Center Grove. We've said that how many times now? 6 or something? 7? Yeah, and it's gonna be cool to see how many times or how much they carry into next season, because we know they have that chip on their shoulder where everyone's gonna be coming after them next season. So good luck to Center Grove next season. But right now, enjoy it.
Well, folks, it's another episode of Show Choir Nation, which means it's another episode of Ethan not knowing how to say things.
What did I say wrong?
It's Hacken, not Hacken. So that's okay. We'll let it switch.
That one's kind of hard. You have to admit, that one's kind of hard. That one's a little different.
It was a little different. It's more so not knowing Finnish than not knowing French, but we'll let that slide from here on out. Our second place group was the Grenada Visions. Grenada is a group that I don't think was on a lot of people's radar from outside the South at the beginning of the season. We've talked about them at length this year. Adam, I'll toss this one to you first. Is there anything that their second place finish at Nationals does here for them that they hadn't already done over the course of the season in the South?
Well, they've had an extremely impressive season in the South. They've beat some fantastic groups, namely Brandon as one of them, but there has been various accomplishments for this group. And not to say that people don't pay attention from outside the circuit, but I think especially us Northerners up here, some of us may not notice a group like Grenada until they really hit that stage. And so this is a group that's had a super fun theme. This is a group that's had tight, polished, and artistic choreography with some great sounds. And I'm really happy to see them get recognition for the greatness that they put on stage this year.
Ethan.
So I didn't know who they were until last year. I'm not to be a hater or anything, but I had no idea who they were until last year, and because someone recommended, they're like, "Yo, you have to listen to this ballad." I listened to that ballad and I was like, "This is maybe the best ballad I've ever heard." If you hit in the right spot, I will actually cry, and I cried. I was like, "I'm not even watching this live." And the ballad soloist just wailed. Oh, it was Hallelujah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I remembered that off the top of my brain. But after that, and this season, I think they're a powerhouse in the South. That's just what I know. And we had this conversation twice now, or 3. This is gonna be the 3rd time we talked about this. Who's the top 3 in the South? And we were like, could it be Grenada? Could it be Oak Mountain in that last spot? Is Brandon in that last spot? We really, things are going all over the place. And I said early on, before we were previewing, or I believe it was our last competition before this one, I said, I think Grenada has a top 2 spot. I think they're going to give Center Grove a run for their money. That was before I saw Center Grove. But Grenada did, if you just look at the score sheets, they did give Center Grove a run for their money. They showed everyone who they really are for being down south. Like you said, not a lot of people know about Grenada, and now they do. I mean, fantastic season, Grenada. I can't wait to see where you go from here.
Awesome. Running down the lineup: 3rd place, Oak Mountain; 4th place, Findlay; 5th place, Noblesville; 6th place, Cedar Rapids, Kennedy. Of those groups, which ones stand out to you, Adam?
Well, Noblesville, I think, performed pretty well as compared to, what some might have thought. I think it's interesting that they kind of twin shows with Oak Mountains. I saw that the that the doctors went ahead and took a fun little photo together on the Show Choir Nats Instagram. But Cedar Rapids Kennedy is another group that I had not predicted to make finals. No, this guy over here, Will, predicted they would make finals, but there is not a shadow of doubt in my mind that they really deserve all the recognition that they get for that. This is I think I talked about it a little earlier this season, but this show has a meaning to it. And in the fun setup of the Camp Happiness show that they put together and all, right? There is the deeper meaning, which is, and it goes a little bit. If you want to check out their show, it's on YouTube. It's a little into the context of the show, but they talk about what it means to be a performer, what it means to be part of a group, and where the value comes from. Is it from getting the audition? Is it from getting the placement? But it really comes from the group that you're with. So congrats to them for that recognition. I won't talk about Brownsburg right now. I could talk about Brownsburg. Those of you who know, I'm pretty akin with the Indianapolis circuit. But you know what? It's definitely not time to rain on the parade of those 6 fantastic groups that we saw take the Opry in finals. And of course, I would want to congratulate each and every one of them.
Ethan, of our 3rd through 6th place groups, who stands out to you?
Adam, first off, you kind of sold Cedar Rapids to me. Kennedy, I really want to watch their show now. That was a great sell. So good job on selling their show to me. I saw their warm-ups though, and I saw that some of them were in shorts, and I was just kind of jealous because I never got that opportunity during a show choir show. Or I don't know if they were shorts, but you can see their legs. So yeah, kind of jealous there. But on the note of the Back to the Future shows with Oak Mountain and Noblesville, so I thought once I heard that, I was like, well, one of them's not going to make finals because I don't know if the judges can watch 2 Back to the Future shows again. It's like, well, just one of those things that pop into my head. I'm like hearing Power of Love again and Back in Time again and all those Huey Lewis songs in the news. So at some point it's going to get old, but the fact that they both made finals is super cool because it's super unique and different. You don't hear about 2 of the same shows making finals, especially a national competition. So that's super cool. Findlay, I know they slid compared to the prelims, but they're always a fantastic group. And top 4 finish at nationals is nothing to gawk at. I mean, it is what it is. All these groups are fantastic. I feel like we'll talk about the people who didn't make finals here in a little bit. And the women's results because, woof, I mean, that's maybe as storyline packed as the mixed is. So, Will, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, one group that Ethan, you briefly touched on was Oak Mountain. And Oak Mountain is a show that not a lot of people were super hot on going into this, seeing as how they kind of took it on the chin at Tift County. They lost to Brandon. But kudos to Oak Mountain. They were 3rd in prelims, and they were 3rd in finals. So a very, very solid showing for that outfit. Major props to their directors, Michael Zokin and Gavin Dover. And I think they're up to like 6 or 7 choreographers at this point, so I don't even try and remember them all. I think like Kellis Oldenburg is one of them, and Farlanda Buchanan maybe. I'm not entirely sure if I'm correct there. But the biggest group that stood out to me was I'm going to default myself here because I said 3rd through 6th, but it really is Grenada again, because Grenada was 4th in prelims and they were 2nd in finals. and they picked up no captions in prelims. And it's hard to break into the captions in finals if you didn't take any in prelims, but they did. AJ Benford wound up picking home a Best Performer award in finals. And so just huge signs of progress for that Visions group, even just from prelims to finals. So talking about our non-finals groups here in the mixed division, Brownsburg was 7th, Jackson Academy 8th, Fairfield 9th, Glenwood 10th, Manchester 11th, and Bloomington 12th. Adam, you wanted to talk about Brownsburg. Now's your moment.
Well, Brownsburg is a group that I think we'll talk about this a little in the upcoming week, but just didn't get lucky with the scoring process, and that's what it is. And it was very, very close going into finals, is what, to my knowledge, was the situation was. So again, this is a group that I don't know how they performed on the Opry. I haven't seen a video of this particular performance, but I know that they have a really strong sound. I'm not super keen on their show design. I think it's a tad offensive. But I do think that they have a really fun show and a great bunch of kids. And as far as their treble group goes, they actually probably outperformed what some people, not me, of course I know, what some people thought they would do. Their show is I Love Lucy themed. And contrary to my feelings about the mixed group, I love it. So it's a super fun, super cute show. I don't actually know if videos will be published from nationals. Do we have any clue? Yeah, might not be a
I
podcast
think we have
question,
some
but
starting to populate. I don't know if Tyler LaDuff was there because I know Tyler LaDuff has been there and has posted really good quality videos in some of these past years. I don't know if he was there again. I do know we have some. I think we have a Center Grove one, and I think we have a couple other ones as well. But yeah, TBD. I think on large scale videos.
yes, but if
So
anyone gets the chance, I believe I have a video of Brownsburg's treble group, but they had a really, really fun show this year. So, and as far as other groups make the cut to finals, you have some other groups that have been making a lot of noise this year, right? You've got Jackson Academy off to a strong start. You've got Fairfield, a really reliable program, and Glenwood, who is looking to take on kind of a new adventure for themselves. And that's not to snuff Manchester, who brought it from the East Coast, and Bloomington, who's a really small group as well. So, kudos to them for that.
Adam, what is the show design of the Brownsburg mixed show, if you don't mind taking a couple moments?
Yeah, so the spot and their mixed group name being Spotlight Singers and Co. Obviously not a dissimilar group. Again, I spent a little time earlier there talking about how fantastic their sound is, but it is a portrayal of mental illness that I think is a little bit nearsighted. Not my favorite portrayal of that in a show choir show. If you're curious, I have a video up on YouTube, if any, but it's my primary complaint with this, and this isn't just this show, but I'm picking on it because it's the example here, is when you take on a really serious topic in a show design, I think it's important that you finish the job and that you address it. You don't just begin with it and then brush it off and party the way out, But again, my opinion, not an official.
There we go. Ethan, I would love to hear your thoughts about the non-finalist groups, but I will put some words in your mouth. I will say that you were going to talk about Glenwood, and so those are Ethan's thoughts. And my thoughts is that I was going to talk about Jackson Academy. I thought they had a really strong performance, but we're almost out of time, so we got to roll on to these women's results. In first place, the Center Grove Debtones with vocals and choreo. Second place, Brownsburg Starlight Voices. Third place, Oak Mountain the Muses. Fourth place, Fairfield Pure Elegance. Fifth place, Noblesville New Dimension with Best Band. And sixth place, Manchester Touch of Swing. We've got a little bit of time. Ethan, since I silenced you in the last segment, I'll toss it to you first. What storylines do you see out of this women's division?
So I really don't know off the top of my head because I didn't do any research. Hand up, that's on me. But for this women's division, I feel like all these groups have maybe wanted women's division this year. I feel like majority of them have. I'm looking at it. I feel like Noblesville has. I feel like Fairfield might be up there. I know they go have some really good competition with Loveland and some others there. Oak Mountain. So that's kind of the storyline that I'm looking at. Is how Brownsburg, second place finish. I don't know that many saw this coming. I mean, I'm not from Indiana. I haven't seen their show yet. But I've heard that the Muses were pretty good this season, and they were up there for maybe top 5 in the country. I figured Center Grove would come in and take it, But again, in a competition like this, where you have a mix of fantastic choirs all from around the nation, you really don't know. But they took care of business with vocals and choreography. So big shout out to them. Brownsburg, big time finish in my eyes in second place. And Oak Mountain, top 3 finish at Nationals is still a fantastic placement, especially coming from the South, because not a lot of people know who you are. That's just what it is, because all of show choir is in the Midwest. It's cool to see groups come up to Nationals and put their mark on it, regardless of placement you get. So congratulations to all those choirs. And yeah, Center Grove sweeps it all.
There we go. Adam, one storyline that sticks out to you from this women's division.
Won't take too long here because I already talked a bit about Brownsburg, but Noblesville is a group that consistently wins the combo award in Indianapolis, and they won in both mixed and univoice. And I don't know what the particular band rules were here at finals, but when we talk about combos, this is one that I know regionally is pretty well renowned. So congrats to the Noblesville band.
All right. Well, folks, that just about does it. As I referenced earlier in the episode, there are no competitions this weekend because it's Easter, so enjoy a nice weekend off. We will have plenty of content coming down the pipe at homeroomshowchoir.com for you. And as always, this show will be archived on YouTube, Spotify, or Instagram if you prefer to watch the entire thing on Instagram. That's your own deal, too. We also have a very exciting promotion with the site coming up and starting this week, so be on the lookout for that. Hopefully we can touch on that in next week's show. Oh, here we go. Noblesville's band has a name, and it's called The Main Event. There we go.
Well, congrats to the main event.
At the very back end of the show, we have a question. Can you talk about South Windsor Choral Spectrum? We did talk about them earlier in the show. So when we post the show to YouTube and Spotify, make sure to check out the early portions of that show. And so with that being said, Adam's breaking out the fireworks, which I think means that it's about the end of the episode. So enjoy your off weekend from Show Choir, everybody. We will see you next week, Monday, on Show Choir Nation. For Adam and Ethan, I am Will. Have a great evening.